Everyone see that, Claire?
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Great. Huge thank you firstly to Claire for the information to come and chat with you guys and hang out with you in Entrepreneurs in Property. I think it's one of the most relaxed and chatty networking groups on property I've ever been in. And that is a positive reaction, guys, I promise you. And I've done a huge amount of presentations, both on stages and since COVID, remotely as we are doing this evening. But you're a great group and you set up for all of the right reasons, which is absolutely fantastic. So this evening, I've got a lot to get through for you and a lot to chat about. So let me just start covering what we're going to cover briefly this evening. Fairy tale or truth, what would serve you best? Registrations are the tip of the iceberg. Legally required documents, the pain of penalties, and the future is almost here, something called NAPSA. But first, a little bit about me. For those of you that don't know me and wonder who I am and why I'm here talking to you this evening, I started out being a police officer, and yes, that photograph in the middle is actually me. It was a long time ago, guys, trust me on that. It was a huge amount of time ago. But I was a serving police officer for over 14 years, and I only left because I was injured on duty. And it wasn't the guy in the bottom right-hand corner that injured me. I'll talk to you about him in a moment. My husband Tony and I first invested in property ourselves back in 2005, and we got it completely wrong. The idea was fantastic. I was a parent of 3 children, home mothering, looking after the home. Tony was still a serving police officer. But we wanted to invest in property and bring in some more income. For the future, it was a great idea. But we went about it all wrong, and we bought 2 properties off a local builder, brand spanking new, prior to them even being out of the ground. Every which way but loose, we made the wrong mistake. There was a 12-month delay on the build, and by the time we got them and moved in, we were fast approaching to this 2007-2008 property crash. So you can imagine that things didn't go very well. We'd purchased a 3-bedroomed flat and a 4-bedroom townhouse. We rented out the flat for a while, and we ended up actually moving into the townhouse. It was just what we had to do. And we lived in the townhouse for 11 years. And just to show you how bad it was, at the end of 11 years when we sold it, we only made £85,000 profit. That was how much the market had dipped, or how too much we'd paid for the properties in the first place. We didn't hold on to the flat, we sold it. We didn't make any money. In fact, we probably made a loss. But it really scared us off from property investing, although we both said that we wanted a business operating for when Tony retired from the police that we could both work in. Late 2011, we went to a seminar. Well, I went to a seminar and was listening to a guy who was talking about property investment, and I got interested again, and it took me a while, but I did convince Tony to go and listen to him anyway. And in January 2012, we started a mentorship with him, and he suggested deal sourcing, and I said, what's that? And he said, go off and research it. So in January 2012, that was where it all started, and I spent the first 12 months or so researching legality, compliance, crewing for our mentor, knowing that he taught people how to invest, and we could maybe pick up some connections who would want to work with us and have us source properties for them in the north. And that was how it worked, and that was how we picked up our first long-term investor. We now work with investors directly, and we source just for their needs. So we source to order. We don't source in the way that most sourcing agents do, where we find a deal, package it up, punt it out into the Facebook groups, and then try to con someone into handing over £3,000 and running away to the hills with it. We don't operate in that way. The only fee that we charge up front is a £100 registration fee, which is double deductible off the first deal. But we only work with a small number of investors at any given time. Sourcing for us is part-time because we have other interests and businesses that we now run. From the very beginning of starting sourcing and looking into sourcing, and certainly the legality and the compliance, probably because of my background in the middle photograph, I've been passionate about raising standards in the property sector, specifically the sourcing sector, helping to protect investors from unscrupulous sources and raising standards of property sources across England and Wales. Now, since the debacle in 2005, Tony and I have dipped our toes in the investment sector again. We braved, we jumped in with both feet actually. We bought a block of 6 flats, a commercial project. It was a repossession in the Northwest. We were doing a BRR, or a buy, refurbish, refinance, with everything in place. But in between being a police officer and now I have some history in the healthcare sector, operations manager of a large supported living and domiciliary care company, as well as doing some acquisitions and mergers in the sector as well. And I still have some contacts in that sector. And they asked us, actually, strangely enough, if we had a block of flats available. And we said, well, actually, we're renovating some. They said, can we have a look? We said, yes. They came around, they wanted it. So instead of a buy, refurbish, refinance, we actually flipped the block of flats early 2018. The top photograph on the right is me at about 6 months old. And the reason that I put it in is that for those of you that aren't aware and aren't old enough, the toy that I'm holding is called Noddy. And as you can see, Noddy's head is on back to front. And that is because Tina was screaming and didn't want to sit still and have a photograph taken, but she thought it was hilarious to try to rip Noddy's head off. And I promise you that isn't why I became a police officer at all. And I never ripped anyone's head off as a police officer in the 14 years that I served. Now, the image in the bottom right-hand corner is a memory of mine from being a serving police officer, because I actually faced a guy with a sawn-off shotgun who had just shot my colleague, and I didn't know if he was dead or not. And the guy raised the shotgun like that and aimed it at my head through my police vehicle window. So that's just a little bit of an insight about who I am, how I've come to be where I am today. And now we're going to talk about the main stuff, the fairy tale. Sourcing business setup. Trish will be chuckling at some of this stuff. I know that she will be in the background, even though I can't see her. And we talk about this an awful lot. When courses are advertised in the training sector, they're advertised on what I've started calling a fairy tale basis, the roses around the door story. You can be financially independent and leave you £40,000 a job in 12 months from sourcing. And people purchase these sourcing courses without having an understanding of what they're signing up for. And the vast majority of depackaging courses that I've had feedback on do not cover my favourite topic, which is compliance and being good and legal and professional, anywhere near in the depth that it needs to be. So people are sold the fairy tale. And they're told that all you need to be fully compliant, and this terminology has only come into being since I've been standing on stages for the last four and a half years talking about this. We now hear people coming out on social media and saying we are a fully compliant sourcer. And what they're saying in the main is we have a bit of professional indemnity insurance. We are a member of one of the 2 redress schemes. We are registered with data protection supervision. And we're registered for anti-money laundering supervision. And in fact, I've been looking through one of the major magazines today, and someone talking about deal packaging there has just come out and written this list themselves that that's what you need. Well, that is setting up your business. But sadly, when you register for redress schemes, supervision, data protection, money laundering, you're registering for supervision, which means that they're expecting you to meet minimum standards. And the vast majority of people sign up for all of this, not realizing that there are minimum standards and a lot of information and learning that they have to have before they can legally operate as sourcing agents and avoid the heavy fines that are coming out now from HMRC and, strangely enough, recently, the Property Ombudsman, which is one of the redress schemes. So yes, these are the core registrations and the insurance that you need. But sadly, it's a fairy tale if you believe that that is all that you need and having that makes you fully compliant. It doesn't, it's nowhere near, and it could really, really hurt you. So I like my iceberg theory. I love my iceberg theory. And whilst you have your registrations, they are literally the tip of the iceberg. Literally the tip of the iceberg. And it's what sits below this iceberg that will really, really hurt you. Just like the Titanic, you can sail along and think, I've got all of my registrations, but you will not know what is sitting below the surface because no one tells you. And it's that will sink your sourcing ship. Because it's not the bit on the top that does the damage, it's the bit underneath that no one talks about that will really, really hurt you, such as legally required documents, policies, risk assessments, procedures, monitoring, KYC, knowing your client, all sorts of different things that you have to know about, from PEPs or politically exposed persons, sanctions lists, not just countries, but individuals. Assessing your client, not just to prove their identity, but where all of their cash has come from, and all of these written procedures having to be in place. So what a lot of the courses are teaching you is what sits above the water level. What I teach is what sits underneath. So legally required documents, one size does not fit all. I see now more and more people saying that you can buy a pack of documents off them. You can be fully compliant in minutes. You can do all of this, that, or the other, and everybody can just sign up and everything's all hunky-dory. Well, I'm sorry, but I've read in depth HMRC's reports, their 71-page document for estate agency businesses as to what's expected of you, and that is not what HMRC expect to see. If you buy documents, anybody's documents, it doesn't matter, and just add your business name, can you be compliant in minutes? No. It's like any other policy, any other professional documentation, any other contract. If you don't understand what that piece of paper is for, what that document is for, and just put your company name on it, and print it and put it in a folder on your bookshelf, you might as well not bother having it, because it's not worth the ink that it's and the paper it's printed on. It really isn't, because it will not reflect your business. You can copy from a website and add your business name. You're good to go. Are you? You can have a copy of mine, add your business name, and it will be fine. Will it? There's huge danger in thinking that you can take shortcuts. And that's what I hear all the time. I want to do it quick. I want the money in the bank quick. I want to be compliant fast. There are no shortcuts that will do you any favors. Setting up a business, becoming successful at that business, understanding that business and having everything in place takes time. It is not an overnight solution. Every sourcing business is different, and I don't care what you source. Every sourcing business is different. Everybody on here that sources will source in a different way, will have their own ways of doing it, will have their own different types of documents, will have their own ways of communicating, will have their own ways of securing deals. So every source's documents should be individual to that company. And if you're inspected and it doesn't meet how you operate, you will just fail. Makes no difference how much you paid for them, how much it's cost you in paper and printer ink, and how beautiful your folder is on the shelf. It won't make a jot of difference. Each business will deal with different types of clients. Each business will source different strategies. Your sourcing business must have its own documents. You must know your business, because if you don't, HMRC won't believe either, and they won't. And I promise you there's some eye-watering fines coming out, which you will see in a moment. So wherever you get the documents from, ensure, please, that they reflect how your business operates and you understand what they are used for, what should be in them, and what practices you should have in place to fulfill what those documents say. It is really, really important. Don't be fooled when people say to you, sourcing agents are below the radar, the powers that be aren't interesting, they're not watching you, they're not checking up on you. You can do a couple of deals and you'll be absolutely fine. Well, this is where we talk about the pain of penalties, and these are real penalties. These are not things that I've made up. You can search for them and you can find them equally easily on the internet. These are example fines from HMRC, who supervise for money laundering or anti-money laundering and breaches. And this is a UK Settle Company Limited, which was a service accommodation business, I think, for the commercial sector and resettling workforces. It doesn't really matter who they are, where they were based. The fine was £3,245. You will find that all of the appeal, it says no appeal, because no one takes HMRC to court, they can't afford to. But what I want you to look at is what it says in the middle. And these breaches are failures in carrying out risk assessments, having the correct policies, controls, procedures, staff training, which is a legal requirement, customer due diligence, and that thing called timing of verification. What's all of that mean? It means that HMRC inspected this company and found that they breached all of these regulations in the money laundering regulations, and they didn't have the correct policies in place. They weren't carrying out a risk assessment. They didn't have controls and procedures, those written procedures that I told you about just a few moments ago that dictate and speak about how your company operates. They didn't have proof of any staff training, which at the moment you're supposed to have at least annually and have it provable. They didn't do customer due diligence, which is what HMRC call KYC, or know your customer. And the timing of any verifications that they were carrying out were incorrect. What does that mean? HMRC expects us, as sourcing agents, to have carried out due diligence on our contracted clients, that's the people who pay our bills, at the earliest point in our business relationship. So you sourcers have to hand on heart honestly say, if I have a list of investors that want me to send potential deals to them via email, and they've told me exactly what they're looking for, how much they want to pay, how much refurb they want to do, the locations, geographical postcodes, the investment strategy, and asked me to send them the information, have we formed a business relationship? Because HMRC have clarified that a business relationship does not have to include a signed contract. Now, there are no test cases for this, and I can't say to you that you will be fined or not, but I'm telling you that this is a red hot topic for HMRC. And this is one of the reasons why we bring our investors on first. We get to know them, we understand exactly what they want, we build a relationship with them, we build a trust with them, we do the registration, we do the risk assessments, we do the customer due diligence, and we verify before we source anything for them. This is why we do this. Otherwise, an eye-watering £3,245 could be sitting and waiting for you, or even worse. This is another example, a small estate agency business. And don't be fooled by the term estate agency. Just because we don't have high street shops doesn't mean that, as far as HMRC are concerned, we don't carry out estate agency work. We do. And when you register with HMRC, you register as an estate agent. That's the only way that you can register. So this was a smidge over £3,500. But again, read in the middle. Failures in conducting due diligence, verification of identity and proper record keeping. When you do due diligence on your clients, you have to keep a record of it. So having all of those forms that you've put your company name on, such as a risk assessment and other forms that you should complete for all of your clients. If you don't, HMRC will fine you. And one incredibly recently from the TPO, or the Property Ombudsman. A sourcing company has actually been named, and very close to me in Blackburn. And the complaint was submitted to the Property Ombudsman that properties identified did not meet the investor's criteria, and a clause in the buying agreement which allowed a deposit to be retained was not made clear. This resulted in the £3,000 award being made. Now, the agent didn't pay it, and so has been blocked from being a TPO member. The TPO speak to PRS, the Property Redress Scheme, who are the other redress scheme, and because legally you have to be a member of either to operate, basically they've shut this person's business down in one foul swoop, with a £3,000 fine. Now, just before I go on to talk to you about NAPSA, I want to say this. During lockdown, HMRC or someone there has had a light bulb moment akin to none other. Originally, they did their due diligence on those registering for money laundering supervision on what they call doorstep checks. So they came to your place of work. But during COVID, obviously, we couldn't do that. But I don't know if you know or not, but HMRC aren't government funded. They're funded by supervision fees and fines. So they had to find another way of supervising and carrying out their role. So somebody had a light bulb moment and decided that they could select agents from their database and send out letters or emails. And they're doing it. And they're sending out letters and emails, and they're giving you 10 days to produce copies of all of the documents that legally you ticked a box to say that you had in place, details of all the clients that you've worked with in the last 12 months, and details and paperwork proving all the due diligence that you've carried out on them. If you don't submit them, they're averaging £7,000 plus fines on people. This is the level of intensity that HMRC are taking it to at this moment in time. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about NAPSA. Now, it's NAPSA because the name is such a mouthful, it's almost impossible to say, especially not if you had a few to drink. But it's the National Association of Professional Sourcing Agents. I actually wanted National Association of Sourcing Agents, or NASA, because I'm a space fan. I'm a Trekkie fan, but I couldn't have it because somebody's already got the name. So I had to settle for NAPSA instead. And as you can see from the logo, NAPSA is going to raise standards through guidance, support and education in the sourcing sector. I want to give you a little background about the NAPSA story and just talk to you about how it's come about and the time that it has taken to get it to the point that we're at this moment in time. In 2013, I had a vision. I was sourcing, but I had a vision of somehow achieving 100% compliance in the sourcing sector. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. Absolutely none. I hadn't got a clue, but I had this vision that I wanted to achieve 100% compliance in the sourcing sector because I'm passionate about the sourcing sector and about protecting the investors that use it. We provide an incredibly useful service, and a lot of investors really love the service that is provided when it is professional, legal and compliant. So I had this vision. In March 2016, I started to write a book called Property Sourcing Compliance, Keeping You on the Right Side of the Law, which is sort of a pun and a kickback to the fact that I used to be a police officer. And I started writing the book. I gave myself 6 months to write it. It actually took me 18 months in the end. In April 2017, I started touring the UK, and it wasn't on holiday, I promise you. I was standing on stages at any presentation event that would have me to talk about sourcing compliance and the fact that I was writing the book. So I was presenting anywhere, and Tony was my driver. He would drive me around the UK. The furthest that we ever went was Cornwall. We went down to Southampton, Bristol, London, the Northeast. We even had a couple of trips up into Scotland. We weren't paid for doing any of this. This was my time. And I had a mentor at the time that said to me, Tina, if you want to achieve that vision, you're going to have to put yourself out there. You're going to have to set yourself up as the guide for sourcing and compliance. And in order to do that, you're going to have to write the book and see if you can get Amazon #1 and use that as the first step of marketing yourself. And then you have to go on stage. And I said, but I don't want to go on stage. I don't want to stand on stage and talk about this. I can't do that. I can't present to people. I just can't present to people. But I also knew in my heart of hearts that if I didn't do that, I would never achieve the vision. And as far as I'm concerned, failure is not an option. There are no obstacles that I can't get through. I either go over them, under them, through them, or around them. And that's what I say. I just do one of any. Sometimes it takes me a while to do it, but I get there. So I started touring and talking about compliance and sourcing from stage. In October that year, 2017, I published my book, and within 10 hours of publishing, we'd achieved Amazon #1 across 7 categories with the help of a mentor that I had for writing the book and publishing it, to whom I will be eternally grateful. So if you like, that was step 1. I'd written the book, I got Amazon #1, even if it was only for half an hour, nobody could take it away from me, and I could use that as a marketing tool to then go to the next stage. I was still talking around the UK. In 2018, after 2 years of attempting, I actually got a face-to-face meeting with the Property Ombudsman. At the time, it was Katrine Spall. She has since retired and another lady has taken over. And since then, I have been working with the Ombudsman, the Property Ombudsman, incredibly closely on the NAPSA project. What it was, what it would look like, and what it would want to achieve, and how we could work together with the Ombudsman for them to help us to achieve what we were looking to achieve. In October 2019, I had a telephone chat with the head of legals from the National Trading Standards Estate Agent team. The head of legals from the Property Ombudsman, he and the Ombudsman at the time had read my book, passed a copy on to Rob, the head of legals from NT Sealt, and he read the book and wanted to chat with me. All of them agreed with my interpretation of the law as far as sourcing is concerned. So all of those people that were saying to me, this is just the law constructed by Tina because she wants to set up a multi-million-pound training company, is just rubbish. That isn't the case. The powers that be agree with my interpretation of the law around sourcing agents operating as estate agency type businesses, and therefore everything that governs estate agents governs sourcing agents. In January 2020, I commenced work on the new code of practice for the new association. We didn't even have a name at the time, but I started working with the head of legals for the Property Ombudsman and the Ombudsman herself, and I was writing drafts of the code of practice. And Trish will chuckle because I think we ended up at draft 19 on the code of practice, and I would send it over to Trish for her to read through because I got so fed up of reading it. I wanted her to read through to see if she could see any errors that I'd made. In November 2020, the National Association of Professional Sourcing Agents, brackets NAPSA Limited, was registered at Companies House. And I am so proud of that moment, so proud of the achievement of what we made, because the amount of people on social media, when I mentioned what I was going to do, said, you will never do it, you're an idiot, you're setting up a corporation, you'll never be able to run a national association, you don't know what you're doing, nobody will join, you'll never achieve anything, blah, blah, blah. August 2020, I've got that about wrong, commenced building the website. It's actually August 2020 that we did start building the website for the National Association. We literally started in August 2020. Apologies, that's the wrong way around. And in November 2021, we will launch UK-wide for people to come on board as what I call founder members. And the founder members, there will be 250 of them. We've already got 118 applications. There is a 30% discount on the first year's membership for founder members because they are looking at stages 1 and 2 of the website build. They're kicking it for me to see if they can make it fall over, suggesting any changes, adaptations or alterations they might want. And they're putting the money basically into the bank for us then to start really marketing the National Association out. So that's a little bit about the story. Stage 1 is launched at the moment. Sourcing agents apply for membership, complete their information in their company profile. The NAPSA team check the information provided for accuracy before accepting membership. Sourcing agent is then searchable on the NAPSA site. Investors can search for sourcing agents by geographical area and investment strategy wanted, and it is completely free of charge for anyone, including investors, to search. Investors can then contact any sourcing agent via the contact details on the site. Now, this is there at the moment. We have maybe about 8 sources that have come through the full membership application. And the reason that it takes so long is this, and this is what I want to get through to sourcing agents and to those investors that want to come on board and search. If you're a sourcing agent and you want to join us, and it isn't a legal requirement, you have to pass a hugely high level of compliance for us to accept you. And we have a guide and a tick box checklist before you join to ensure that you have got everything on that list before you even pay. Because if you join and pay and you don't have it, you'll be wasting part of your membership. And I'm not taking money off you that's wasted. I want you to be compliant, but I want you to be fully compliant in line with what NAPSA requires before you pay for membership. We get you to load copies of risk assessment, policies, in-house complaints procedure, all sorts of different things, copy of your insurance certificate. You have to tell us all of your registration details for the redress scheme for the ICO and HMRC. You have to tell us that you've got insurance, the level of the insurance, who it's with, the expiry date, and send me a copy of your information. You have to tell me the expiry dates of all of your registrations. You also have to send me a copy of whatever contract you're going to use for an investor to sign to work with you. And trust me when I say that if you just got a one-page NDA, you won't be accepted, because I don't consider that to be of high enough standard as a contract between yourself and investor for a professional business. Now, the NAPSA team manually check the information that you provide. It is not a tick box, we're taking your money off you and you're going to be searchable. We will check all the information. If there's something wrong or we need something changing, we will get back to you. Until everything is passed, you won't be ticked and accepted and then become searchable on the site. At the moment, stage 1 is up there and there are some sourcing agents on there for you to go and search. All you can see at the moment when you've searched and filtered is you will come up with a list of sources, the name of the company and contact details. Stage 2 is what will be coming by the end of November. Stage 2 is where all of the information provided during stage 1 will be visible in a sourcer profile page format. So the important information that you need to know about that sourcing agent will be visible for you to see as an investor without you even talking to that sourcing agent. You can read their terms of business agreements or contract that they expect you to sign. And you know when they've been accepted to that point that we have manually checked everything on that person. Investor searching can select an individual sourcing agent in the list that appears and open up their profile page. And the profile page will show you key compliance information, such as I said, the terms of business agreement or whatever document they use, and readable details of any upfront fees payable, whether they're refundable or not. And if it's in a client account, giving you the last 4 digits of the client account and the name of the bank that owns it. I consider this information to be the basic information that you as investors should be checking on your sourcing agents anyway. But we will be the only site in the UK when this launches that actually provides you as investors with that information. Benefits for sourcing agents. You can use NAPSA as your marketing platform and showcase your business. I'm sorry, all the arrows are all out of sync on this one. I thought I sorted them out. We have the code of practices guidance for operating professionally. There's the limited discount for founder members. Their annual fee is £136.50 plus VAT. That's for the whole year, which equates to £13.65 a month or 46 pence per day. When we have 100 investors on board, we will start spending £500 a month marketing on Google, on Facebook, and in magazines to advertise, yes, for other sourcing agents, but also to let investors know that you guys are there. You can showcase your businesses and all of your professional compliance in place, and you can set yourself up into what I still stand on stages today and say is 1% in the sourcing audience. Because if you go and search on LinkedIn today for sourcing agents, property sourcers, deal sourcers, and any other terminology you can think of, currently, my hubby tells me, and I trust him, there are 36,000 plus registered on LinkedIn alone for the UK. Don't let that put you off. The vast majority of those will never do a deal. The vast majority of those will never have a business that operates. You guys can, and for a small cost, you can come and be a member of our only national association at this moment in time that puts your needs, your wants at the fore. We are just waiting for the member logo to be accepted for trademark. Trust me when I say we've been attempting this since March this year. We're expecting, or the solicitors have promised me, we're expecting a confirmation through by the end of November at the latest. And any member, because of the code of practice that we have, will have to display that trademark on all documents, social media sites and websites. If you see anyone using the trademark and they're not allowed to, you can inform us, and trust me when I say they will be getting a strong solicitor's letter. We are going to focus on specialist strategies, repossessions, assisted sales, lease options. I wonder why Trish is talking about this and where I got this idea from, because fingers crossed next year, Trish will come on board as one of our founding directors, one of our specialist directors, and will help with specialist strategies. I don't understand all of the specialist strategies. We're going to take directors on board, on the board of directors for the National Association who are specialists in various sectors, and Trish will be our specialist. Fingers crossed, I hope she's still smiling in the background and she's saying yes, for repossessions, assisted sales and lease options, because trust me when I say I trust nobody else on those topics other than the wonderful Trish McGeer. We will hold monthly webinars on key topics of interest. Benefits for investors. One site, free to search for sourcing agents on NAPSA for any investor. And you know, because of the due diligence that we are manually doing, we are not accepting that they tick a box and say they have insurance or they are registered. These are manual checks that are done. And by the way, during the year, ad hoc checks will be carried out to see that they are still registered and they still have everything in place that they should do. And NAPSA can't issue fines, we're not allowed to do, but what we can do is we can suspend members, or we can actually block members from membership. And because we are working with both redress schemes and forming partnerships with them, we will all start talking and they will be aware of what's going on and what you've been suspended or blocked for. So an investor will have the confidence to know that all members have been thoroughly checked for compliance by the NAPSA team. They will not be live for you to search unless they have. You will be able to see all the relevant compliance information, including registrations and documentations, before you even make contact with a sourcing agent. We are forming partnerships with both redress schemes, the TPO and PRS. They both have copies of our code of practice and the terms of use for the site, our disciplinary and complaints. I'm just waiting for some feedback for them before we press the button and say that we're good to go. And we have a complaint process available. It shouldn't say compliant, I've got compliant on the brain. It's a complaint process available for investors to use. In stage 3 on the website, there will be a complaint button at the top of the page where if you're an investor and you have used the services of a sourcing agent who is a member of NAPSA, you can come through an electronic complaints process and we will deal with it. We also pass information on to the redress schemes, and I'm hoping eventually to national trading standards as well. That's where I'm hoping for eventually. So what does the future hold? Because the launch, believe me, is just the beginning. It is not the end. It is just the beginning. This is the beginning of where I really wanted to get to, but we haven't got 100% compliance yet. Not everybody knows about this. So what is the future? As I said earlier, onboarding specialist directors to provide guidance and support for different investment strategies, assisted sales, lease options, repossessions, HMOs, SA, commercial land development, etc. We will have a director on board with specialisms in these strategies as soon as we possibly can do. We'll provide monthly webinars on key topics, guidance and free training for members. Keep members up to date with changes in legislation or regulation. Forge close relationships with other relevant service providers such as insurance brokers, electronic due diligence systems and CRMs. I'm already in talks with a few electronic due diligence systems and secure data systems that are interested in coming on board and giving discounts for NAPSA members in exchange for being able to advertise and maybe come on board and do one of those monthly webinars for you guys, so that you can see the systems that are available. You can see CRMs that are available, insurance brokers, specialist solicitors, whoever else it is. You can see and hear them and then make a decision for yourselves as to what is best for you. Those power teams we're going to be bringing to you. Build the credibility of the sourcing sector. At the moment, the sourcing sector's credibility is below on its knees. It really is. Some of you may not know that some finance providers will not provide finance for deals if they're declared as sourced. So I'm working with the finance sector to prevent source deals from being rejected for finance. And NAPSA and its connections with the redress schemes, national trading standards, is key to us being able to get the attention of the finance sector, get them on board, and for them to say to us, okay, you're reaching a high enough standard that if somebody who has sourced a deal can prove that they are a member of NAPSA, that they have these standards in place, we will finance a deal despite the fact that it has been sourced. So this is the future. And I have a 10-year plan. This isn't 5 minutes. It hasn't taken 5 minutes to build this far, and it will take a lot longer to get it to where I want to be. But the goal is still 100% compliance. Because if I strive for 100%, if I strive for the end of the universe, I might reach a star. If I only strive for the moon, I might not even leave the atmosphere. And that is the future. There are some contact details here, but I'll bob some contact details in the chat box, and I'm around all evening if anybody has any questions about anything at all. But that is my presentation for this evening, guys. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.